and welcome to Global Atheist News, dateline 27th of August 2022. This is our weekly report on how religion has impacted humanity over the last 7 days. This week's headlines. The Somalia hotel siege. More than 20 die in al-Shabab attack. Iran steps up the persecution of its Baha'i minority. A Louisiana hospital denies abortion for a fetus without a skull. Scientists establish a link between religious fundamentalism and brain damage. 31 UMC churches in North Carolina demand immediate exit from the denomination and threaten a lawsuit. An Ulster Museum could end up in court over the Freedom of Information request. Christian groups step up the harassment of pagan festivals. A GOP candidate says it's totally just to stone gay people to death. Atheist is to send Texas schools "In God We Trust" signs written in Arabic. Australian Anglicans split over same-sex marriage. Singapore is to end its ban on gay sex. A pastor's body remains in store for a year, awaiting resurrection. Somali security forces have said they rescued 106 people who were trapped inside a hotel that had been stormed by militants on Friday night. 21 people are confirmed to have died in the 30-hour ordeal, the health ministry said. The fight to retake the hotel ended overnight, officials said. The assailants used explosives to gain entry to Mogadishu's Hyatt Hotel before violently taking control. Islamist militant group al-Shabab has taken responsibility for the attack. Commander Abdi Hassan Mohammed Hidra told journalists, "It is shocking that innocent people lost their lives here. The security forces were engaged in rescuing the people one by one and in groups. The death toll could rise as there is the possibility that family members collected the bodies of relatives before an official count was made." He added that 117 people were injured, with 15 of them being in a critical condition. The hotel has been largely destroyed following intense fighting between the militants and security forces, with videos showing explosions and smoke billowing from the building's rooftop. See this video. In the village of Rushanku in Mazandaran province on Tuesday, about 200 Iranian agents destroyed 6 homes, confiscated over 20 hectares of land, and arrested more than 100 Baha'is. Diana Ali, the representative of the Baha'i international community to the United Nations in Geneva, urged the international community to intervene. Given the Iranian government policy documents persecuting Baha'is, the international community must immediately act before it is too late, she said. The Baha'i community in Iran, the country's largest religious minority, is suffering escalated persecution in the aftermath of the arrest of several members accused by the government of spying for Israel. Tehran is seen as scapegoating the group to distract attention from the deteriorating situation in the country. The Baha'i faith is a monotheistic religion that emerged from Islam in Persia in the 19th century. Its founder, Mirza Hussain Ali Nuri, also known as, was imprisoned and then banished from Persia to the Ottoman Empire in 1853. He went through several stages of exile and imprisonment until 1868, when he was sent to Acre in today's Israel, where he died in 1892. Baha'is recognize him as an additional messenger who appeared after the Prophet Muhammad. Muslims, on the other hand, insist on the finality of Muhammad's revelation, and Iranian law therefore treats Baha'is as heretics and does not recognize their faith as a religion. Today, there are between 5 million and 8 million Baha'is in the world. The biggest community lives in India. Iran hosts the second biggest Baha'i community with about 300,000 members. At the beginning of July, Nancy Davis started feeling nauseous. The Baton Rouge resident considered COVID-19 or the flu, then decided to take a pregnancy test just in case. She saw the 2 blue lines denoting a positive test and ran to the living room to tell her boyfriend. They were both elated, but their happiness was short-lived. At the first ultrasound at Women's Hospital, the largest birthing center in Louisiana, the technician looked troubled and left the room. A woman in a white coat entered. Davis knew that wasn't good. The doctor pointed to the picture at the top of the head. There was no skull, she told Davis, an unsurvivable condition. The doctor tried to comfort her, saying this was one of the conditions that qualifies as an exception under the state's abortion laws. Davis, about 10 weeks into her pregnancy, was still heartbroken. There was nothing I would have preferred more than to have this baby, said Davis. Instead, she prepared herself to pay an estimated $5,000 for an abortion at the hospital. But that's not what happened. Even after doctors at the hospital said they would provide an abortion once she got the diagnosis of acrania, a rare and fatal condition, from a specialist, the hospital called to tell her it would not be able to do it, she said. The hospital directed her to a Florida abortion clinic instead, or to carry the baby to term. Davis's predicament illustrates the gray area in Louisiana's new abortion law and the administrative regulations that attempt to explain it to medical professionals and the public. They all but forbid abortion, except to save the life of the mother or when the fetus is medically futile, according to a list of conditions issued by the state. Acrania does not appear on the state's list of accepted conditions for abortion. But the state also has a broad exception for any profound and irremediable congenital or chromosomal anomaly existing in an unborn child that is incompatible with sustaining life after birth in reasonable medical judgment. 2 physicians must sign off on the anomaly. But Women's Hospital still said it would not perform the abortion. A study published in the journal Neuropsychologia has shown that religious fundamentalism is, in part, the result of a functional impairment in a brain region known as the prefrontal cortex. The findings suggest that damage to a particular area of the prefrontal cortex indirectly promotes religious fundamentalism by diminishing cognitive flexibility and openness, a psychology term that describes a personality trait which involves dimensions like curiosity, creativity, and open-mindedness. Religious beliefs can be thought of as socially transmitted mental representations that consist of supernatural events and entities assumed to be real. Religious beliefs differ from empirical beliefs, which are based on how the world appears to be and are updated as new evidence accumulates or when new theories with better predictive power emerge. On the other hand, religious beliefs are not usually updated in response to new evidence or scientific explanations and are therefore strongly associated with conservatism. They are fixed and rigid, which helps promote predictability and coherence to the rules of society among individuals within the group. Religious fundamentalism refers to an ideology that emphasizes traditional religious texts and rituals and discourages progressive thinking about religion and social issues. Fundamentalist groups generally oppose anything that questions or challenges their beliefs or way of life. For this reason, they are often aggressive towards anyone who does not share their specific set of supernatural beliefs and towards science, as these things are seen as existential threats to their entire world view. 31 United Methodist churches on western North Carolina are demanding they be allowed to leave the United Methodist Church and have hired a Florida legal firm to push their claim forward. A lawyer for the Western North Carolina Annual Conference, which has more than 1,000 congregations, responded to the letter saying it would not comply since the request does not follow the disaffiliation plan approved by a special session of the United Methodist Church's General Conference in 2019. That plan allows churches to leave the denomination by the end of 2023. They can take their properties with them after paying 2 years of apportionments and pension liabilities. Most of the 31 churches seeking an immediate exit are small, rural congregations. So far, the Western North Carolina Annual Conference, which spans 44 counties in the western end of the state, has approved the disaffiliation of 18 churches following the approved plan. In Florida, 14 of the conference's 700 churches requested disaffiliation and were allowed to leave at this summer's annual conference meeting, according to the bishop. In a post on Wednesday on the Western North Carolina Annual Conference website, Bishop Carter said churches suddenly leaving without paying apportionments and pension liabilities can create significant issues for the rest of the conference. One of Northern Ireland's top museums has been warned it could end up in court unless it releases information about its stance on the evolution of life. Earlier this year, an individual wrote to the Ulster Museum requesting the empirical evidence and hard science used to support the museum's endorsement of the origins of the human species. As widespread immunity and milder COVID-19 strains have spread across the US, pagans and witches have begun to gather more freely this summer at annual community events after 2 years of relative isolation, and so have some unwelcome guests. Street preachers and Christian protesters have long been a fixture of earth-based religions gatherings as they try to distract and deter people from enjoying what are typically outdoor festivals and ritual gatherings. But this year, some attendees say, these opponents of witchcraft and paganism have become more aggressive and even dangerous. There were about 30 evangelists this year, said Star Ravenhawk, an elder and priestess of the New York City Wiccan Family Temple and organizer of Witches Fest USA, a street fair held in the city's West Village in mid-July. A GOP candidate in Oklahoma is getting attention for comments he made several years ago when he justified the death penalty by stoning for gay people. When asked recently about it, he didn't disavow his previous comments. Scott Esk is running in the Republican primary runoff election for a seat in the state house, and local media is bringing up some extreme comments he made in the past. He's not handling them well. In 2013, Esk was commenting on a Facebook conversation about the Pope saying that he couldn't judge gay people. Esk posted some Bible quotations, including the part of Romans 1, where the Bible says that a long list of people who sinned is worthy of death. See this video.
But you posted on a public Facebook page that it's probably okay that homosexuals are stoned to death. I mean, that's not something I'm making up. It's there for the world to see. It's still there this morning.
Okay, well, no, I already told you what I felt about that. That's not any part of my, you can look at my website and see what my legislative priorities are. I did put in my Facebook page that I am against moral perversions like that, and I don't want to see them. I see the insidious things that it does to the family. That, pornography, frivolous divorce, many things that are tearing our family apart. And I do deal directly with some of those issues and offer solutions. But no, what I've already told you is how I feel about it. I have some very strong moral misgivings about it. I know what was done in the Old Testament, and what was done back then was just. I don't know that would ever, I don't think that was ever in the history of our country to do what was done in the Old Testament. But I do stand for biblical morality.
A new Texas state law passed in 2021 is getting renewed focus in the new school year because it requires public schools to display "In God We Trust" posters as long as they're donated or paid for by outside groups. No taxpayer money involved. And as long as they fulfill the law's requirements. Conservative Christians are already taking advantage of this situation, offering dozens of posters to school districts in various counties. The law never said "In God We Trust" had to be in English. So an atheist from Florida, Chaz Stevens, created a version of the poster with "In God We Trust" written in Arabic, and is intending to send them to Texas schools. Will schools accept these donated posters? The truth is they don't have a choice. If the posters are donated and meet the legal standards or legal specifications, they must go up. The schools would be violating the law by rejecting this offer. The launch of the Diocese of the Southern Cross prompted the head of the Anglican Church of Australia, Primate Jeffrey Smith, to issue a statement, characterizing it as a new denomination. This company, while established by some members of the Anglican Church of Australia and structured to mirror some of the characteristics of an Anglican diocese, has no formal or informal relationship or connection with the Anglican Church of Australia, Smith said in a statement. He could not be reached for comment. Glenn Davies, former Archbishop of Sydney in the Anglican Church of Australia, was appointed as Bishop of the new diocese at the GAFCON Australasia Conference, a gathering of conservative Anglicans from Australia, New Zealand, and the South Pacific that met in Canberra, Australia, last week. This is a sad day in many ways, Davies told The Guardian. If the leadership would repent and turn back to the teachings of the Bible, We wouldn't need the Diocese of Southern Cross. I'd shut it down and come back. This split is the latest in a series of fissures over LGBTQ inclusion that have bifurcated Anglican denominations in New Zealand, Canada, Brazil, and the United States. Singapore will repeal a law that bans gay sex, effectively making it legal to be homosexual in the city-state. The decision, announced by Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong on national TV, comes after years of fierce debate. LGBT activists in Singapore have hailed the move as a win for humanity. Singapore is the latest place in Asia to move on LGBT rights, after India, Taiwan, and Thailand. The government's previous stance was to keep Law 377A, which bans sex between men, but it also promised not to enforce the law in an effort to appease both sides. But on Sunday night, Mr. Lee said they would abolish the law, as he believed this is the right thing to do, and something that most Singaporeans will accept. He noted that gay people are now better accepted, and scrapping 377A would bring the country's laws in line with current social mores and, I hope, provide some relief to gay Singaporeans. We finally did it. We're ecstatic that this discriminatory, antiquated law is finally going to be off the books. There's a sense that maybe it took a little too long, but it had to happen, you know. We are very, very happy, gay activist Johnson Ong told the BBC. A coalition of LGBT rights groups called it a hard-won victory and a triumph of love over fear, adding that it was the first step towards full equality. See this video.
The government will repeal Section 370. The government will repeal Section 377A and decriminalize sex between men. I believe this is the right thing to do and something that most Singaporeans will now accept.
No.
Yeah, this is funny.
I don't think it really makes much of a difference. It's just a small little step. I think a lot of people may think that it's a big step, but I think for us, that in terms of us being with a child, I think that's it's not much of a story. It doesn't actually help very much because PMB also says that it's they are going to maintain that definition of marriage between a male and a female, and because it builds is the basic building block of society and family. So that already to us is kind of it's not much of a change.
Pastor Siva Moodley, the founder of the Miracle Church in the north of Johannesburg, died on August the 15th, 2021, after falling ill. His body has been kept at Martin's funeral home since then. His family await his resurrection. This week's Free Thought Hour features Christian philosopher Lewis Howarth. You can join in by texting your comments and questions. It's live and is free. And don't forget to watch Global Atheist News Review, our spin-off show where a panel of opinionated people get a chance to express their views on this very news. The GAN team will be back with our weekly news report next week. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, and set the notifications. This has been Global Atheist News. Thank you for watching.